Thanks for tuning in to Know Better, Live Best. We are dedicated to supporting food and health literacy in people of all ages. Our mission is to cut through the misinformation surrounding food, health, and nutrition because we believe that when people know better, they can make the right choices and live their best lives. My first guests today are the co-founders of Bytable Foods and the sponsors of this podcast. They use blockchain and Internet of Things technology to build traceable, transparent food systems because it shouldn't take an investigative journalist to find out where our food comes from. I'm pretty excited about these guests today. One of the co-founders is a longtime family friend. I remember a time where he came over and recovered photos that I thought were lost forever and bailed me out of a huge situation. He's even worked part-time jobs for my father and has been an amazing friend to my youngest brother. Get ready to learn where their passion comes from and why their technology is needed to help build a safer and transparent food system. Hi, I'm here with the co-founders of Bytable Foods, Jacy Rittmer and Brett Dugan. Thanks for joining me today.
It's good to be here.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Awesome. So we were talking earlier, and it's very clear how passionate you both are about health literacy and food transparency. I don't think that's always the most typical thing that happens. Where did you two come into this?
We actually started with an online marketplace for local foods and wanted to build a business with the goal of helping local food producers succeed better in their markets and expand in their sales channels. And we started taking a closer look at why do consumers buy local foods? And the reality is that all they really want is to know where that food is coming from and be able to support the people that are growing it and making it and ensure that what they're eating is what they want it to be.
Very interesting. So Brett, you two met together then, doing that.
Yep, we started actually working on a different project to try to help farmers manage their farm better. And over time, we found out that we both loved food and especially local food and transitioned to doing this.
Yeah. Both of us have a pretty personal attachment to food. I personally grew up on a farm where we grew pretty much everything that we ate, and what we didn't grow, meat and stuff, that we actually got from our neighbors and from Amish farmers and people around Kelowna, Iowa. And we put a lot of value in having really high quality food that we knew where it came from. And then I had to move away because I got older and I couldn't have that all the time. And I was put into this position where I couldn't find food that I wanted to buy or eat. I'd spent a lot of time at farmers markets, and that was about the only outlet I had. And so I wanted a way to bring that back because I had grown up with it. So
Okay, and so this is where Bytable was born. This is where the idea came from?
It's where a passion came from, my passion came from for food.
Yeah, I think where Bytable came from was that idea of adding a local feeling to foods that were quality but weren't necessarily local, which grew from the passion that we both have. For me, I'm kind of a specialty food fanatic, so I have always tried to find high quality food, and I'm one of those people that reads the label really intensely. And for me, it just wasn't enough information. So all those things kind of combined into what we're doing now.
Well, I think this is a really, really interesting company because I have the same problems that you two are talking about. I think I'm feeding my children healthy food, and then a recall comes out, and I'm like, oh, it's going to go in the garbage. It's fine. But at least it's just a few dollars for me, but big time for other companies. So right now you're working on Bytable. I think the listeners are going to be very interested in what Bytable is. What is Bytable Foods?
Bytable Foods is a network of services and tools that have been built on blockchain to help food companies create supply chains for their products that are completely traceable and transparent to consumers. And so we work with food producers, with manufacturers, with distributors, with retailers to make their product supply chains transparent and give them all of the tools to do that. And in doing that, we can help them increase the transparency of their brand. We can help them connect better with their customers, and we can help protect them in case of recalls and help limit the costs and effects of them.
Okay. So I guess as a consumer myself, and as most listeners are, with these, and I keep bringing up the food recalls, but that's what's been hitting home for me. If I buy something and there's a recall on it, I could check and know like, nope, what I bought was fine, or yes, that's definitely affected by the recall for sure, as opposed to just guessing? Is that how that's going to?
Well, the way our product would work was you would scan a code, and you would know a lot quicker if there had been reports of sickness or if the product had been recalled. But that actually makes me wonder, how do you normally check when you're talking about finding the whether or not a product is being recalled? How do you normally find out about that? Because that's interesting to us as well, because it's hard to do right now a little bit.
Well, it's really hard to do, and I know I'm not doing it well. You hear about it on the news. People call each other like, hey, you usually buy, we'll just say melon, for example, because that's one of the recent ones. And half the time, I'll just throw it away. It's not, I don't take the chance of maybe digging deeper, because I have 3 small children, and times are the essence, I think, most of the time. So honestly, I'll just toss it. That may not be what most people do. I'm kind of interested to find out what most people do, but my friends in general, they'll throw it away, or they may just be the opposite. Oh, I'm sure it's not my food. We'll just eat it and be fine. Yeah. I'm not willing to take that chance. And then you just listen to the news. You'll get online and see if you can find out more information, but I don't think you truly really find out until the news sources come out. But that's a whole other scenario, I think, sometimes. But that's what I do. It's not done well. I know that. That's why I'm really interested in Bytable.
Yeah, that's what I was wondering, because most people do only know once it's actually hit the news. The FDA puts it on their website when they do a recall, but it's just kind of a dated looking list, and there's really no way to find out about it. And even by the time it's on the FDA website, the food has probably been out there for months already and already been contaminated and getting people sick. Yeah. And that's kind of another thing that we're trying to solve with what we're doing.
Yeah, one of the major problems of the food supply chain and the food system that we have currently is a lot of the practices for tracing foods are really dated. A lot of companies are still doing pen and paper records, and we don't really have regulations that support keeping a full supply chain of information. So really everyone in this food supply chain only has to trace one up and one back from when they handle it, and that's about the extent of it. And so it can take a really long time to figure out whether there's actually a problem with food. It can take 3 to 4 weeks to even know that there's a problem, and then another 2 weeks just to trace it back and figure out where generally it came from or where it might have been contaminated. And by that time, it's been on the shelves for 5 weeks. And then it even gets more difficult when you go to actually recall all of those products, because you have to contact all of your suppliers, all of your distributors, and have them pull stuff off the shelves. And most of the time, a lot of it's already gone. So.
And people are sick, and that's like we said before, and that's how we know. Well, these people are already sick. It would be nice in some way, in the near future, to stop before it happened, because you think about small children. There's food going out to schools, just your children you feed, just people in general. It's not just children. I speak of children because I have 3 of my own. You want to feed them healthy foods, and then that could have been what got them sick. It's like, I should have just got you a hamburger from McDonald's, At least you'd, still be sitting here and okay. So I think those are kind of some common misconceptions we may have about our food industry, that if it's being sent out, it's probably fine. It's not often we're going to have food recalls, but I think there's probably more out there. Have you heard of other misconceptions about our food industry? Or is that pretty much that they don't have as many rules as maybe we think or hope they should?
There's plenty of misconceptions that customers and consumers have about the food system, and that kind of ties back to one of the things that's really important to us is promoting literacy for food. And if consumers have the ability to know that they need to be asking questions and what kind of questions they should be asking, that can go a long way in getting companies to be more transparent and more honest about their practices, because people do care about those things. Yes. It's something like 99% of consumers want more transparency with their food, but we don't really have it because they're not equipped to be asking questions, and there's so many different misconceptions out there. You get rumors, you get facts that aren't really true, you get people pushing things that they believe are true, but aren't really in the full scheme of things. And so there's just a lot of confusion for consumers. And so one of the things that we really want to help with is literacy and health and food.
So for listeners like me, is there anything we can do to make this a bigger push to get things started? Are there questions we should be asking? And maybe it's dietitians at the grocery stores, or do you have anything to say on that?
Yeah, I think there's several things you could do. Actually asking restaurants and grocery stores about the sourcing of products. Talking to dietitians wouldn't be a bad step, in asking them if they know what products are sourced responsibly. But even they probably won't have all the answers on that. There's misconceptions at every step of the chain. I think even going back to what might interest you as a mother is foodborne illness is actually a lot more prevalent than even people realize, because a lot of the less severe illnesses actually don't get reported. So many times when someone gets sick throughout the year, it's actually foodborne illness. It's just not severe enough to trigger a recall or alert someone of contamination.
Interesting and scary, actually, when you put it in that perspective. And that's why I think it's so important to get this information out there. For people like me that want to know more, they just don't know necessarily where to start. So I'm going to switch gears just a little bit. So your technology that you're working on, getting out there to help consumers, I hear about blockchain. And I tried looking up my own, and I stopped because like Bitcoin and things like this. I'm like, I don't think that's where I'm going. So I'm going to leave it to the experts here. So tell us a little bit about blockchain and why you think that can help with food transparency.
Sure. Yeah. Blockchain is a new technology. It's actually about 10 or 11 years old now. But how it works is essentially it has solved the problem where we can share data in a way that's trusted. So before, you have multiple businesses all trying to share paperwork or just documents from clipboards. Now we can actually share that in a way where two different companies can guarantee accuracy between each other. And the way that is done is by everyone storing the exact same copy of all data in a system and agreeing that that data is accurate. So if a tomato comes to, for instance, a grocery store from a distributor, they both have to have the same information and agree that that information is accurate. And that is why you hear a lot about blockchain outside of Bitcoin now, because there's a lot of uses where people used to have to rely on either just believing someone or relying on a third party to validate information of some kind. But now blockchain can do that, and you don't need that third party. And the difference between what we're talking about in Bitcoin is really what we're doing has nothing to do with cryptocurrency or hackers or anything. We're actually just using the data storage part of it. We're not using it to move money or anything like that.
Okay.
And it's important for food transparency because there are a lot of problems with food fraud, and within the United States, there's a lot of different kinds of food that have staggering statistics for the amount of it that's fraudulent. Like something one out of every 5 fish is brought here illegally, and a good like 50 to 60% of the time it's often not from where it says it's from, or even the kind of fish it says it is. And a lot of consumers just don't know about that.
No.
And if we use blockchain to create a completely transparent and traceable supply chain, it becomes much, much more difficult to lie about things like that. For instance, a lot of olive oil that comes into the United States has been tampered with or diluted in some way. And it's really hard to test for something like that, and a lot of Americans don't know what good extra virgin olive oil tastes like. And so when they bring that into the country, what happens is that they'll duplicate certificate numbers. And when you have duplicates of those numbers, it's really hard to cross-check amongst an entire system whether there's 2 numbers in the system. But if we have that on blockchain, we can quickly cross-reference records, and we can make sure that everything is going the way it should go.
I'm pretty positive I can say most consumers do not know that information just by conversations I've had with my friends, or, oh no, it's extra virgin olive oil, I have the good stuff, you can use that, or, oh, this is what I used in this healthy dish, when in all reality, we think that in our heads, we might feel good about putting it in our bodies, but that's not really what's going on.
Right.
And when we think about our bodies, this is the one body we're given, and we don't have enough information of what's actually going inside. I mean, this is our life, and and sometimes might turn a blind eye because it's just easier, because maybe it's just too overwhelming maybe to look into it, or we don't know where to start. I think that's usually what happens. You don't know where to start, to find out about this stuff, so you kind of just give up because you don't know what else to do.
People don't really have the tools to prove that they're getting the food they think they are in most cases, because in the case of olive oil, the store thinks it's real olive oil in most cases too, and that's your best authority. So how is a consumer actually supposed to be able to tell the difference? And that's what we're hoping to solve. And I think back to the olive oil thing, it's funny. She actually wrote an article for our blog about it, and in doing that, she found out that in taste tests, Americans actually prefer fake olive oil because the problem is so prevalent.
Because it's what we're used to.
That's what we think olive oil tastes like when it's just not.
Right, that's very true. Mm-hmm. And like different additives or things in that case taken out or diluted.
Right.
It's like going back to, I have a 6-year-old child, and we asked him what foods he does not like to eat, and you know what he said? Real food. Real food, which he meant vegetables. Yeah. But it's just kind of funny. It's what's real. We don't necessarily know what that tastes like, because whether we're out to eat or things being added in, that we're not even aware that's on there. So if grocery stores don't even know, when we're looking at food labels, is there anything else that we should be looking at, or is it just a guess when we look into it?
It really depends on what kind of food it is you're looking at the label on, because, and this just does go back to the fact that consumers really do need to be asking more questions and really need to be equipped to know more, because it changes so wildly for each food product that you get. For example, if you're comparing a fruit to eggs, if a fruit is organic, it can't have chemicals in it, it can't have any hormones. An organic fruit means a little bit more, but for an organic egg, all it really means is that the chicken was never fed food with GMO in it. And people look at those labels and they think, oh, this is organic, it's going to be good for me, someone's checked it, it's going to be fine. And in reality, they just don't know all of the little ins and outs of the system. And every single food has those ins and outs with it. Like, we've written guides on coffee, we've done guides on olive oil and eggs, because it is so complex. It takes hours and hours and hours to just write these guides and write these articles, and it's hard to comprehend that we're asking consumers to take on that burden of knowing all of those things, and they're not able to give their trust to even retailers.
Yeah, in many cases, it's purposeful, the confusion that consumers are given, but it's because there's not many rules on how food is marketed, so you can say something like natural on a product, but it doesn't have to mean anything. It's not really regulated. Premium, quality, all those things aren't real. People can do organic sounding brands that aren't organic, and even the certifications have become a marketing ploy in many ways, because most consumers don't actually know what those certifications mean, and a lot of them are questionable if it's a good thing for the food or for the planet.
Right. We've actually spoken with a milk producer in Iowa who said they can't make organic milk because of the restrictions for cows who produce organic milk. They have to be outside for a certain amount of the year, but in Iowa we have horrible, horrible winters, and it would be inhumane for them to be outside that many days a year to meet the qualification to be organic. And this company has amazing milk. It's amazing. It's just unbelievable how good it tastes, but it's not organic. And so people won't buy it because they think it's not good, because it's not labeled organic. But really, it's better than probably any kind of organic milk that they would get from a commercial producer.
See, and that's interesting. Those are things I don't even know about. Because I've recently, within the past probably 6 months to a year-ish, have been trying to do more of a plant-based lifestyle due to some back issues, knee issues, lots of reasons behind it. But also, so I try to stay out of like the middle part of the grocery store and try to stay like to the sides. And so I'm like, oh, my organic fruit's getting better. But even these days, I'm like, but is it? Because those are interesting points to bring up, that there are some foods that might be better. They just don't have the label organic. Because I see organic, I'm like, oh, it's got to be better.
Yeah.
I can buy this.
Another part of that too is it becomes a barrier for a lot of smaller producers to actually get those certifications because it costs money. It takes so much time in order to get those certifications, but they know consumers want to see it, and so they'll spend that time and that money. And often it's not even increasing the quality of their product. They're just doing it to get the certification. And so when consumers are expecting all of these labels on their products because they think they know what it means, it actually becomes a huge barrier for a smaller quality producer to get all of those certifications on their products.
Yeah. So in many cases, when a food is actually travels less and goes through less processing and has all the criteria to meet organic, it won't be certified organic, and it'll actually be at a disadvantage in a market or the store against a product that is potentially worse. We're not advocating against organic. It is good, but there is definitely something that's not fair for other quality producers because of the organic certification.
So this could possibly help like the smaller companies, maybe the smaller farmers even.
Right. Yeah, if we could trade in all of those different certifications for what they actually want in their products, which is transparency. They just want to know where it comes from, and that it's good. That's really all of those certifications are there to communicate. And so if we do just kind of compile all of that and move to traceability and transparency, it helps consumers, it helps businesses, and it makes our food system better.
It would make, I think, everyone's lives easier.
Yeah.
Knowing what you're putting in your own body, especially, it's not easy to always eat healthy. And then if you're like putting in the time and you're maybe not really eating as healthy as you want to, it just seems like a waste of time.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. Everyone knows it's hard. So if there's one big takeaway for the listeners today, it's kind of a big question, what would that be?
I guess just for me, it would be trying to actually improve your own literacy, because it's something that we work on all the time. Because even though we're actually doing this for a living, we find out shocking information all the time. Food that we thought we could trust ends up not being what we thought it was. Food that we maybe didn't trust before ends up being a great product. So I guess asking people who know what the source of a product is, and asking your grocery store for more transparency in how they actually source their products.
Yeah, if you want things to be better, you have to ask for it. Especially when businesses, they make their money off of consumers. And so consumers, if they have the power to ask those questions and they know that they need to be asking those questions, they can change our food system.
And that's something I need to do more. It's get out and ask those important questions. And it might be uncomfortable for some because I bet they're not used to getting that question very often.
Yeah. Well, for example, at a restaurant, if you're spending $2 or $3 more for a local product, you probably want to actually know that that's local, because in many cases it might not be what you think it is.
Right. And most families have budgets for their groceries. So if they're going to be spending for that high-priced food, it better be the quality they really want.
Right.
But right now, they just don't necessarily know that.
Yeah.
So you both have mentioned writing articles. How can the listeners out there find you and maybe look into some of these issues that you're finding?
We have our website. It's bytablefoods.com, Bytable, and our blog is linked to on there. You can also reach out to us on our Facebook pages. We have LinkedIn. We're on Instagram too. So if they want to reach out to those methods, they can. They can also, just give us a call. And we would love to talk to them.
And follow this podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome having you on. So I am a little curious though, just with the health literacy and everything. What's your favorite healthy food? Maybe give me some ideas.
For me, it's not necessarily about is the food healthy so much as is it a quality product. I don't want like chemicals or things like that in food, but I like knowing that the meat I'm getting is ethically raised and sourced and a quality product, especially because meat's expensive and the impact on the environment is so high. I want to know that it's not something that is harmful for the world or on animals.
I'll be a little more simple. I love balsamic vinegar, the good kind.
The actual vinegar.
If you find a good balsamic vinegar, look for it and make sure that it's really like viscous and thick, and not like thin and watery, and it's like candy. You can add it to anything. You can put it on sweet potatoes, Brussels sprouts. You can add it to like Chinese dishes.
A spoiler here, though, is that it's almost impossible to find. So
yeah, you might have to order it,
yeah.
or you can ask for it. Go to your stores and ask for it. And
yeah,
so, because I
true.
want to be able to find it more.
Yes. Not so hard to find when you want it. See, mine's also, well, actually it's even more simple. Mine's broccoli and hummus. It's like my chips and dip. Yeah, without the guilt when I'm done, as long as I don't overboard the hummus. But, you know, I love the broccoli part.
I always overboard the hummus.
Yeah, it's like chips and dip. You get it out and you overboard it. No, I'd rather overboard hummus and broccoli than chips and dip, though. So I still feel a little better. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for coming on today. I know I learned a lot, and I know the listeners did too. So get out there, ask those questions, drive the demand.
Yep. Thanks a lot, Kari.
Thank
you.